So today we're with Brother David Crowdis, visiting from South Africa. He served the Lord in Africa for 62 years in Zambia and Malawi and Mozambique, and now in South Africa. And thankful, brother, for you joining us to be able to share some stories, some examples of how you found the Lord faithful, that he can be trusted in your life. Are there some particular examples that come to your mind that maybe you think would be helpful for maybe a young man, a young lady, or maybe not so young, to hear you share to encourage them, or the particular principles that you've learned through life and the Lord being reliable?
I'd like just to share the very first lesson I learned. Well, not the first, but as a missionary, the first lesson I learned, where I just had to trust the Lord. I mean, when I left my job, my friend said to me, "David, you're throwing your life away. Where are you going to get any money from? Who's going to support you?" and so on. Well, I felt led to I had to put myself through college. Then I went to the Missionary School of Medicine in London, and I was called by one of our assembly groups there. They wanted to interview me, and they said, "Where are you going to get your money from?" I said, "I'm just going to look to the Lord." Well, they said, "Don't look to us, because we won't be helping you." They weren't very encouraging, but anyway, that was okay. Oh my. But there was one brother there who said, "No, he can't get a job where he's going out into the bush, you know." Anyway, I came back to Southern Rhodesia and asked my little assembly to commend me, which they did, according to Acts 13. Commended me to the grace of God, but that doesn't mean to say they promised to support me. In fact, they said, "Don't expect us to pay you a salary or anything like that." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm just looking to the Lord." I mean, to me it was all uncharted territory, because I'd saved up a lot of money working. I'd become an accountant when I was working, and I was dealing with about $4 million every week.
Wow.
I was the paymaster general in the Southern Rhodesian government.
This is in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Okay.
56, 57. But of course, that wasn't my money. But anyway, I knew what money was, and my friend said, "Look, you're giving up this good job you've got." And I said, "Well, the Lord will look after me. I mean, I trusted him by faith, and he's called me, and I believe I have to continue just trusting him and looking to him in faith." Well, I went up to the bush, and I had an old motorbike. I had a fairly nice motorbike, which I sold in order to buy a few other things, and I got a very ancient motorbike, but it had no springs, front or back. I had to get a belt about 6 inches wide called a kidney belt. You strapped it on around your belly real tight, so the kidneys didn't bounce out of place. Anyway, off I went to the bush, and first message I preached was in English. And the elders said, "If you want to speak again, it's got to be in the local language."
Okay.
Of course, I wanted to learn anyway. And unfortunately, there are some out as missionaries that don't bother to do that. But it's hard to get to know the people if you don't learn their language.
Yeah. And this is up in Zambia, right?
No, this is Zambia, way out in this very remote corner.
Okay.
So I struggled to learn it and so on. Anyway, after about 3 or 4 months, I could get along in it fairly reasonably. So we started visiting the 3 government junior schools once a week, like a circuit riding preacher.
Okay.
John Sims and I would take it in turns. Well, my turn was the last week of the school term, and about a 30-mile journey, I guess. I went to all 3 schools, and on the way back from the 3rd school, this bike just broke in half. I guess it was metal fatigue, you know. When it broke, you looked at the edges and it looked almost like crystals.
Okay.
It didn't bend, it just sort of crystallized metal. So I was no problem for a young guy to walk home 20 miles. But the big problem was, what would I do when the new term started? In those days, there was a 3 months holiday in the winter. So it was 3 months to pray. But I really struggled, in those 3 months with the Lord, and I was looking up what I wrote about it while I was wondering what to do.
This is in your 20s, right? You were upper 20s?
No, lower 20s. I was 20. I was born in...
No, I mean, how old were you at this time?
At the time, I was about 23.
Okay.
So these thoughts came to me. I'm going to read them to you. 3 months. How could a new motorbike come to me in this remote corner of Africa in 3 months? Where would it come from anyway? How could I possibly find money to buy a new motorbike? And as these questions and many others filled my mind, the Lord quietly reminded me that while there was nothing I could do about it, I could just simply tell it all to Him. Just tell Him the whole problem and leave it there. He would know what to do. He knew about it anyway, but He delighted to hear what a young believer, pouring out his heart and need. And so that's what I did many times during those ensuing weeks. And 3 months later, when the schools opened, I was again riding the circuit, this time on a brand new Tiger Triumph motorbike, springs at the front and springs at the back. Started my kidney belt. His ways are past finding out. There's a little assembly that I didn't even know any of the people in it, at a place called Broken Hill, one of the mining towns of Zambia. And they must have heard that this young guy had gone to the bush. And then they wrote a letter while I was during those 3 months and said, "We want to buy you a motorbike."
Wow.
I said, "That'll be wonderful." And
so you didn't send out letters saying, please help Dave Crowdis, he needs a motorbike?
I've never asked anybody for anything. And Grace, my wife, was the same. We've never, ever asked anybody. And we're very careful when we write letters that we don't mention personal needs. We just feel we should trust the Lord and let Him supply.
So somehow this assembly heard about you, even though you didn't even know them.
Well, I guess there's so few assemblies in those days that they were in contact with one another.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got to know them well later on. Anyway, that's how that first motorbike came. And then my spare parts, it's so sandy there, it's like the top end of the Kalahari Desert. The chain, when you have a chain you put grease on, well, that made grinding paste, if you know what that is. So it grind away those cogs until the teeth were almost flat.
Mm. Chain would work for well that way.
One stage I was way out in the bush, and the teeth were so flat, I had to tighten the chain like a guitar string in order to get it to grip enough to get open. So I used to order cogs, back sprockets, I guess you call them, and front sprockets from the gearbox end, half a dozen at a time. The first time I ordered, I got them, but I didn't get any bill. I wrote and told the guy, "I've never got your invoice." Oh, they said, "It's not going to you, it's going to the people that want to pay for it." And I found this same assembly. For years, they paid every single penny to maintain that bike. In fact, they bought another one. Later on, they said, "Well, you're getting through so many spare parts. I think you need another bike." So sent another bike.
Wow.
So that was how the Lord encouraged me as a young believer, I know back in the States, you'd get young American missionaries come out and they'd have a nice fancy car, and their assemblies would often, I presume, give them something every month and so on. But it wasn't quite like that with myself, because I came from this tiny little place. But God is the God of owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And so that we've tried to encourage other believers, because there's a lot of full-time workers now, so the youth workers are doing. for many years. Grace was a teacher, and when we married, she came with me and we went to the big high school in Balavali, and we taught 1,500 teenagers every week.
Wow.
Right through the week, teaching them Bible as volunteers. And on Sunday morning, they had to attend the church service, which I was able to take. So you talked to 1,500 teenagers every Sunday.
Wow.
It was a fantastic opportunity. And God's ways are not our ways. You know, Grace started a girls' school at Chaguna with her sisters, a boarding school, the first one in that entire province. And the Lord used it, and there's many of those girls that now elderly ladies, married Christian men, and so on, serving the Lord. But the government took over the schools, the mission schools. And some missionaries thought that was a terrible backward step. But actually, what it meant is that, well, Grace by then had married me, so she wasn't there. But when you run a school as missionaries, you have to buy the food, you've got to administer discipline,
Right.
and you've got to administer discipline to your teachers. It's a big hassle, you know.
Right.
But once the government took over, they said you can come in and teach Bible as volunteers, and we didn't have to do anything.
Wow.
No discipline, and it makes a big difference, you know. If you don't have to discipline kids, and you're just there to show them God's love, that attitude is quite different to when you are running a school.
So it seems like
everywhere, people thought it was a backward step.
Right.
And it was of the Lord, and for years that's what we've been doing. We sort of started it, and then others in other areas started following our example, and it's been a wonderful opportunity.
So I guess that illustrates the importance of just trusting the Lord, even if things look like they're going backwards, that He's still in charge.
He's in charge.